to the Steele Summer Learning Series. This is part 3 of a 12-part series about the enrollment, communication, and engagement during the year 2020. Today's topic is life events. This is the 3rd year back for this topic. Thank you to those of you that have been with us for all 3 years with the user meetings and the summer series. I have with me today 2 distinguished guests. I'm so thankful to have them with me. First, I've got Christine Tollison, who has been on Team Steele for 15 years now and has served a variety of purposes. Started as an administrative assistant in 2007 when we began building our technology. She has been building cases with us since the very beginning. So I would like to welcome Christine.
Good morning.
And I also have with us Lindsey Martin, who I've known a very long time, who has a background in wellness and kinesiology and has now been with Steele for 6 years and is a master case builder at Steele. And we're so pleased to have you with us this morning, Lindsey.
Good morning.
So Christine, since 2015, we've really dug into benefits technology and data feeds. How many data feeds have you built since 2015?
Oh, geez, over 200 because we've got about 200 or so running every week currently. So several of those have been changeovers from new carriers. So if I had to guess, I'd say probably at least 300 that have actually been built.
And Lindsey, you're the master builder of Selerix cases. And from 2015 to present, how many open enrollments have you launched? How many times have you built the system?
Oh gosh, last year we launched 71 cases during the 4th quarter alone. So times that by 5 years, we've definitely done a lot of cases on the system.
And just out of curiosity, Lindsey, before we kick into today's programming of life events, how you build the front end of the cases when they launch for open enrollment, how does the builds that you do, how does that tie back into what employers eventually manage after the system goes live when it ties into life events through the year?
That's a great question, and we're definitely going to get into that today, going over exactly how the life events do tie into the system. So I think that'd be great to start talking about.
And Christine, what about on the data feed front? As you build these data feeds, does that impact how life events get processed?
Absolutely. It would definitely affect how life events get reported to the carriers.
That's pretty important, right? Because that ends up being, if it gets reported to the carrier, right, then somebody's insulin is filled when they go to the doctor, right? If they're diabetic, is that what that ties back to?
Correct.
Okay, so let's dive into the programming. Christine, I'll invite you to take over and I'll insert some color throughout the call, maybe ask some questions. Before we do get started, I want to point out to our audience that's on the line, on the very bottom of your screen, if you hover over, there is a Q&A section. And I know that our customers that are users of Selerix on the line that are using this for life events, you might be coming into the call with a question or two about life events that are specific to you. And I would invite you to click the Q&A button at any time through today's event. I'll be monitoring those through and we'll do our best to get whatever questions you have answered in addition to the programming the way we talked to the line. And without further ado, Christine, I'll kick to you.
All right. I believe, Wes, you were going to start out with our first poll regarding who's on the line.
We can do that. So 2 questions for our first poll. The first question that we're asking is, what is your role? We're wondering how many people that we have on the line currently are users of our system that actually manage the life events. And then second question that we have on the same screen is, what are you most interested in learning about today? We want to make sure that we are hitting the timely things that you're most interested in. And so we'll give you about 1 minute to complete the poll. Lindsey, during week 1 of the Steele Summer Series, I promised Jeopardy music while this was happening, but you forgive me, I haven't delivered on that yet. All right, we're at the 1 minute mark, so I'm going to close the polling. And let's share the results and take a look. So, one thing that's important about today's call is it is a user training call. And so if you're on the call, what are you expecting to see today? We're literally going to dive in and look at some screenshots of life events. So that's great that we've got some actual users on the line. It looks like 3 out of 4 on the line today are users. Another 20% are people that work with Steele but maybe aren't the doers on the life event. So that's great. You're hopefully going to have a chance to learn some things today and maybe come away with some questions that we can answer. And then in terms of what employers are interested in, and this really, Christine, does this surprise you that what half of our respondents are most interested in is learning how employees can process their own life events?
No, actually, it's pretty exciting because we do want to offer the self-service life event opportunity to as many of our employers as possible.
Okay, great. Yeah, I kind of have the same thoughts. So Lindsey, when you see these poll results, anything jump out at you?
No, I'm excited that people want to let their employees do the life events. It definitely is very helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, and one thing that I do see on there is the leave and furlough management. I do want to, let you know we weren't sure exactly how many people on the line that would apply to. So we're definitely going to touch on that as we come down to the end. But one of the things that we're also going to do is invite you that have leaves and furloughs to specifically reach out to your customer success manager for additional training, because we want to make sure that we process your leaves and furloughs in a way that's consistent with what you want with regard to, is coverage interrupted, is it not interrupted, and those types of things. And we will dive into that just briefly at the end here today, but that's something that we would invite that conversation to continue for those of you that are most interested in that as well. So with that being said, Christine, I'll kick back to you.
All right, excellent. Good morning, everyone. I first of all want to let you know, as you can tell from the backgrounds, we are still working from home. And just to kind of give you a preemptive, I do have a coworker here with me today. He's in the form of a 100-pound chocolate lab, and hopefully he's not going to want to get too involved in our call this morning. But there's a possibility if he sees a bird fly by a window, if he sees a leaf drop off of a tree, he might decide to say hello. So I had planned to put some treats up here next to me on the table to try to keep him quiet, but he knew they were here and he would not leave me alone until he ate every single one of them. So that did not work. But we're going to get going here, and hopefully Buster will be good this morning. Lindsey and I are going to be talking to you about life events in terms of what is considered a life event in our system, demonstrating the process of entering life events, talking about customization options and troubleshooting. You might know of your general standard Section 125 life events that are very common to an HR user, such as a marriage, a birth, a divorce, or a dependent reaching their maximum age limit. But we also want to talk to you about employment changes, because in our system, the definition of a life event also includes things like job class changes, pay group changes, salary changes, and retirement. So we'll be talking about each one of those and getting into more in depth with them as we go through our presentation.
Christine, speaking to, we've got 1 in 4 of our people that are on the line today are not people that are current life event processors. Could you take just a moment and explain what is a job class from a Steele perspective?
Sure. When we set up your system, there are job classes that are assigned to each employee based on the enrollment rules within the system for eligibility. So if you have a specific group of employees that are offered benefits at a specific price, and maybe there's another group of employees, maybe you have part-time versus full-time. For our school clients, you might have your classified versus your certified employees. Those would all be job classes. So if someone is moving from a part-time position where they are not eligible for benefits to a full-time position that offers benefits, maybe they're moving from a classified position where rates might be a little more expensive or different than a certified position. Any type of change like that where they're moving from one eligible class to another would be considered a job class change.
Thank you. And in the months to come, we have a second session, which is a deeper dive into life events. And just briefly, as it relates to salary changes and its impact on disability, can you just kind of tee up that second in-depth session for what that conversation looks like?
We'll be discussing just some of the problems and issues that can occur when the system is not set up correctly for your plan rules. So we want to make sure that plans are set up exactly the way that your plan documents are listing any type of changes such as a salary change, so that if salary changes require, anytime there's a salary change, the benefits should be changing. We want to make sure that the system is fashioned in that manner. In other cases, there might be groups out there that salary changes only affect the benefits one time per year. So that will be more about making sure that plan documents line up with the way that we have the cases built. Speaking of customization, there are lots of options within the system to allow your plans to function accurately, and that includes having them function accurately when you have someone who is entering in a life event. Some of those customizations could be, how many days does an employee have to log in and enroll? Or as an admin person, how many days do you have to enter in that life event and have the system still function correctly? When do the new benefits begin based on that life event? If it's a date of birth or it's a marriage, the date that the benefits begin might be different than if it's someone who's lost coverage through their own employer, as a spouse, as an example. When do benefits end? If you have an overage dependent child, does your contract have them end benefits as of their birthday? Is it the end of the month? Is it the end of the plan year? Those are all things that can be customized within the system to allow your benefits to function correctly. And which benefits should an employee see? So this is something that we'll get into more in a further deep dive, but as we work to make sure that your life events are set up properly, we'll look to you for assistance in making sure that as you're entering life events, all of the plans that an employee should see during a new birth, a marriage, and so on, to make sure that those are listed.
I would invite our audience panels and remind you that the Q&A is at the bottom of the screen there. So if you have questions about when life events can start and stop coverage as it pertains to your specific eligibility, you're welcome to use the Q&A box at the bottom, and we'll try to answer those questions as we get down to the end today.
Now, the next several screens just demonstrate how you would enter as an HR benefits user, how you would enter a life event for a new child onto an employee's record. And everything starts at the employee record. You would go to the life events tab. And from that tab, you'll see a number of different types of life events that you're allowed to elect for that particular employee. There's some smart technology on here, and I'll get into that during the next life event. But in terms of the life events that you see for specific employees, these are designed to pop up in a certain way. But you would select, I have a new child. And then the employee is going to enter the information for that child. We do have the system set up on all of our cases that newborns do not need to have a Social Security number entered unless the child's over 6 months of age. And right now, I think is when we're going to do poll number 2 regarding document verification.
Poll number 2 is launched, and so we're going to ask you how you collect dependent verification documents today. We'll give about 45 seconds.
think all of you paper users are really going to like this feature.
Sharing the results. And Christine, before I go any further, I'll let you comment on what you see.
Well, it looks like we've got 46% of the respondents are currently using paper in a filing cabinet. And I know as you move to an online system, that gets much more cumbersome and you're spending a lot of time filing. And as Deb had mentioned during one of the last webinars, part of the issue is if those things haven't been filed yet and you need to reach back for them, then you're even digging into a stack of paper that needs to be filed. We do have a small population that is allowing the employees to upload to the Steele system. It looks like some of our HR benefit users are also doing that. And
so about 1 in 3 of our respondents, it looks like, are using Steele system to collect documentation. And we know that HR and benefits departments are interested in empowering their employees to do more. And so, Lindsey, I might ask the question, and I know we're going to get into this. Let's suppose that maybe I'm in that group today that I'm either using a paper filing cabinet or HR is collecting the documents and uploading it, but I'm interested in allowing my employees to take a picture of their documents and upload them to their site. Like, how does that work? If I'm an HR person and I want to allow my employees to do that, like both from a process standpoint, what do I need to do to open up that capability? And then also, how would an employee actually do it?
For an employee to do that, they would actually download the Selerix app and they can log in, take a picture, and upload that to the record. When we do have employees do their own life events, it goes up into a follow-up queue where the HR user would go in and approve that, and they could decide if they wanted to approve that based on receiving documentation or not receiving documentation, but that would be shown on the employee record that they have taken the proper steps and uploaded what they needed to. We also have the option to make the documents able to be loaded, but not to make it required. So if we did have a birth and we needed to make sure that we did get that child on the coverage so they could begin receiving care and having claims paid out, we would allow them the option to do so if they had it, but we would not require it because it wouldn't want to hinder them from getting the coverage, and the employee could also go back in later on and upload that document as well.
Awesome. And Christine, do you think, just knowing what you know about the system and what that process looks like, if an employer were to optionally allow employees to take a picture of their documents and upload it into the site, do you feel that that process is simple enough that with some basic instructions that employees would want to take advantage of that?
Absolutely. You can see here on the screen, and I'm going to hone in on a little further what was on the bottom of the screen. You actually have 2 options. If they already have that document in a PDF format that's on their computer, they can just click the Upload from My Computer button and choose the file that they want to upload, and it goes into their Files tab on the employee's record.
So, Christine, that looks pretty easy, but if I'm an employee, where do I actually find that?
This is, right now what we're looking at is the screen for entering in the new dependents information for a birth. So it's going to be down at the bottom of the screen. This is the administrator's side, but when I show the self-service side, it's basically in the same spot. You'll go through and enter your newborn's information, and then you have the ability just down at the bottom of the screen to click either upload from my computer or take a picture and upload. And it's got the instructions here about downloading the My Selerix mobile app and using your camera to take a picture of that form.
And I know you'd said this from the beginning, but let's say I'm one of the employers that's interested in employees processing some of their own life events. And so I have gone through and I've added something, I've taken a picture, let's say I've had a new baby. How is the employer going to know that the employee has requested a life event and uploaded a document?
We're going to talk a little further about that during the self-service demonstration. But the life event would be in their follow-up tab, and the documentation will be in the forms tab of the employee's record. So for this demonstration here, this is an admin HR user who's loading in, or maybe they're sitting along an employee and entering in the HR information for this new dependent. They can upload the documentation, and then they'll be asked to enter in their PIN to finish up with the selection of benefits. They'll select which plans they're going to be enrolling that new child in. And again, if as the HR person, you see this list and you feel like there should be other options available that are not showing up, we need you to reach out to your customer success manager and have a conversation about that. You'll have the plan options pop up. Something to keep in mind that you want to make sure happens is that the list of covered people includes the new child that you're adding on. There have been times if this employee already has employee and children coverage, you may need to click off of that benefit and then click back on the coverage tier in order to make sure that it populates with everyone that should be covered in the family. After you finalize the coverages, then from the HR user standpoint, you'll be able to go back and look at the employee's coverage tab to see that the child has been added on as of their date of birth. And in terms of when I was talking about the forms tab, this is where you would find that on the employee's record to see any downloads that have been added in terms of forms.
Christine, for the benefit of the 1 in 4 people online that are not current users, that aren't processing life events, can you explain a little bit about what you're seeing here on the screen and where we'd find that?
Sure. This screen here is part of the employee's record, and it includes several different tabs related to this particular individual employee. And so the coverage tab is going to show you all of the plans that are currently active. You can click Show Coverage History if you want to see previous plans that have been terminated, or previous plan years, what plan they may have selected for medical or what coverage tiers they may have had in the past. And then there's several other tabs that you can go through with regards to demographics. Is going to list all of the dependents who they have the ability to choose coverage for. Employment will give you their employment information, salary information, and so on. So our next poll that we are going to be giving is in regards to our life events as it relates to how you're processing them, whether you're doing them as an admin person or whether you're allowing your employees to enroll via self-service.
Christine, I'll let you comment first here.
All righty. Well, it looks like overwhelmingly we've got 76% of our users have the HR benefits department enter the life events. So these next few slides that I go over will be some new features that you can consider moving forward to allow your employees to enter personal life events themselves. It looks like 18% of our users are already doing so.
Lindsey, does that surprise you? Did you expect these numbers to be any different than what they are?
No, not really. But I think as people start to become more comfortable, then this will start to shift for sure.
How would you say this compares to what we saw 2 years ago?
Oh gosh, we didn't see really anybody doing self-service life events with their employees. It was pretty much 100%.
So would you say that that's something that's trending, that our employers are asking us more about, and as they get comfortable with the technology, are you seeing higher adoption of that?
Yeah, I think as our users progress with the years that they've been on the system, it's definitely something they're interested in passing off to the employee and allowing them to do.
Christine, what would an employer tell you that's already doing this if you said, we're going to take that away? Would they throw something at you, or would it not be that big a deal?
I think they would be quite upset about it, just because it makes things so much easier with regards to your manpower within the HR department, and leaving that up to the employees to make sure that they're entering their life events timely.
And maybe teeing you up for a conversation that we can continue, but if I am a CFO at a company, my biggest concern in allowing employees to process their own life events is number one, compliance factors, and number two, dependent eligibility verification. Are there the potential for some employers to have controls to make sure those things are properly managed?
Absolutely. We're going to get into that now. So as we mentioned, there are basically two different ways to enter life events into our system. We just discussed the admin-driven life events, where admin HR is entering all life events into the system. And then there's also the option to add self-service life events, where employees would enter personal life events. And these would be things such as birth, a spouse is losing coverage through their employer, so they need to be added on, a marriage, a divorce. They're not going to be allowed to enter life events such as salary changes, job class changes, or those types of things. They would only have the option to enter personal life changes. So these next several screens, I'm going to demonstrate to you what that looks like from the employee portal side, because the screens do look a little different, and just so you can see from the standpoint of the admin HR person what your employees would be seeing. They would log into the site using the same login page that they would use during open enrollment. And so they would be using their same user ID, their same PIN that they use to make their elections at open enrollment time. And up in the top right, they have some options. And this is also where they go, if they need to make a beneficiary change, they would use the same portal login to do that. But for life events, there's an option that says change my benefits due to a qualifying life event. And that's a link that they would select. And then they're taken to a life events page that gives them the option of the life events that they are allowed to make updates to. So there is smart technology within this system. If someone's already married, they're not going to see an option that says I recently got married or became part of a civil union. They'll see, I recently got divorced, but they won't see that they recently got married. And I know that there's another life event that we're going to talk about here shortly, but if someone's currently terminated and you're going to rehire them, the only time that I've been rehired, or that you're going to do a rehire life event, is if someone's terminated. So it will never show up for an active employee.
Christine, can I pause you there for a question or two?
Sure.
Do you mind backing up one slide for me? Do all of our customers already see this link that's highlighted where it says change my benefits to a qualifying event?
No, they wouldn't. That is only going to populate if we have the system set up that allows employees to do self-service for life events.
And that does bring me to a question that I see in the Q&A, and thank you so much for submitting that. And I've got a question that says, if we want to shift to self-service life events, what do we need to take to get it set up?
A call with your customer success manager.
Okay.
And they'll review the information with you and put in a request to have that set up. And they can work with our marketing department to get any instructions that you need, personalized, that you would send out to your employees, letting them know the process.
Great. And we do have another question too, from a user that's asking us, if we set some of these options up, does Steele charge an additional fee for this?
I'm going to let you answer that. I don't deal with fees. I don't deal with fees.
We don't. Everything that we're discussing today is included in your packages, so there's no additional fees for everything we're discussing today.
So once the employee chooses the life event that they are needing to enter, then they are going to be taken for, in this particular one, it was a marriage, so they'll be asked what the date of the marriage was, name of the spouse, and this is not going to get them coverage. This is just going to load them to their demographics tab. They'll have to go through and actually load them to the plans and enroll them on the plans that they want them to be covered for. But this will add them to the system. And again, here at the bottom, you've got your options to upload verification information, either from your computer or from the Selerix app.
Christine, do you mind if I just add something real quickly?
Sure.
Just as a piece of information, when you're loading documents up, you can actually define, as the HR person, you guys can define acceptable documents that you would like to have used, and we will have them labeled that way. So if they're loading a marriage license, they would label it as a marriage license, or a birth certificate. If you needed a bill of something to show that they lived at the same address, then we can have different documents and different labels for them, so that way you're aware of what that document is.
And that would all take place on this drop-down box for a verification document. The drop-down box would populate the specific documents that you want to be able to have them upload. Thanks, Lindsay. The employee will go through and enter their PIN to confirm, and then they will list which plans they want to be able to go through and enroll their employees in. The next screens would take them through each one of those plans so that they can add their coverage. Once they complete that, they're not going to automatically see the additional coverage in their coverage tab. It's going to go into the follow-up queue so that you, as the admin HR person, can review the information and approve it. It's important to make sure that you check this follow-up queue on a regular basis and that approvals are done timely. This would be clicking on that agent follow-up area. It shows that I have this employee is waiting in the queue. You would just need to click on their name and it would take you to the plans. With regards to taking care of these timely, if you have someone sitting out there for a couple of months, the life event is going to provide their effective date based on IRS regulations. So if the coverage needs to be effective as of their date of marriage, it's going to backdate that coverage to their date of marriage, which means if it's taking you some time to go through here and approve it, you may have missed a few deductions that need to be taken from their paycheck. So that's why we recommend that you ensure that you clear these out on a timely basis so that if you're having a payroll file generated out of our system, that information gets updated timely within your payroll plan. You do need to...
Go ahead, I'll let you finish, Christine. Then I got a question for you.
Sure. You do want to just double check and make sure that the effective dates are correct. They should populate based on the date that the employee entered. And if for some reason, say you're ready to approve the dental but not the medical because you're waiting for something, you can uncheck the box and approve one without approving the other, and the other one will just hang out there in follow-up until you approve that.
Christine, you mentioned the words payroll integration, and it brings up a question that's currently hanging out in our Q&A. And we've got an employer on the line who has a integration with their payroll system. And so they would prefer that employees not be allowed to update demographic information like address because they would rather that come from their payroll system. Can we set up self-service life events, but not allow the employee to update certain fields?
Yes, we can set up in our system that demographics are read-only so that they're not allowed to update their address in the system, that it would have to come from the payroll file or from the employer making the update so that they know that they've updated that in their other systems if they have other systems to update. All right, that gets us through the self-service life event feature. We want to talk a little bit more about the employment changes that are also considered life events, because sometimes that's kind of a hard thing to grasp, that these are actually considered life events in our system. I'm going to turn this segment over to Lindsey, although bear with us because I'm still going to be controlling the screen, so hopefully I don't get behind or ahead of her too much, but we're going to go ahead and first talk about the job class change.
So some important things to know when you do a job class change is understanding what you as an employer are going to allow to happen when the employee does do a job class change. Can they change plans? Can they go from one medical plan to the other medical plan? Can they add dependents now that they have been given a new job class? When they go from ineligible to eligible, do they have a new waiting period? Or if they've worked there for 5 years, have they already been through the waiting period and they get to go ahead and start coverage immediately? There's lots of different things that as an employer, you just have to let us know how you would like that configured so we can make sure that it is set up correctly on here. So next we'll talk about pay group change. Pay group change, so a standard thing that we do at Steele is if somebody changes pay groups, we recalculate all their benefits so that way they automatically go from 26 deductions to 52 deductions. It'll recalculate the amount. It'll show a new payroll date and it'll report that over on a payroll report for you. If you're not seeing that working how you'd like, then definitely reach out to your customer success manager so we can make sure that that is working how you would like. For salary change, this one's really important to know because it could be different on each different benefit that you have. We see this mostly impacted on disability plans. If your employees have a salary change mid-year, does the contract show that they should now have their benefit amount adjusted, or does that only happen on January 1st of each year? Or is it something that really it doesn't matter, that we will go back at time of claim and determine what that should be? So for billing purposes and for claims, you'll want to make sure that you know what needs to be set up for that for your long-term disability, short-term disability, and if you have a salary-based life plan, if we need to update a benefit amount for that. So that would be something important to know as well. Next, for retirement. For retirement, this is going to function the same as a job class change. You're actually going to put them into a retiree job class. When you change that, what plans should the retiree be allowed to keep? Sometimes you allow them to keep certain plans. Sometimes you choose to term those plans. When should those plans be termed? And also, do you allow your retirees to pick up plans that maybe they didn't have? Maybe I worked as a teacher for 30 years and I never carried dental, but now that I'm retiring, I think I do want to pick up the dental. Is that something that you as an employer allow your retirees to choose, or can they only keep benefits that they were currently enrolled in at the time of retirement?
Lindsey, how would retirement be different if my retirees are not eligible for any benefits? So a retiree versus retiring and no longer carrying benefits through the employer or carrying them through the employer. If an employee is retiring and they are not going to carry any benefits because you don't offer them, or the employee is choosing not to carry them, then you would terminate that employee with the termination reason as a retirement. You only want to change their job class and keep them active as a retiree if they would still, if they're still choosing to be covered on benefits on your system. Thank you.
With COVID-19, we have seen a rise in questions with regards to furloughs and rehires. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about that process and how that looks when, say, you've termed an employee in the system and now you're planning to rehire them with no lapse in coverage. I was going to have Lindsey speak to both of these scenarios to hopefully clear up some confusion and answer your questions.
So I think we have a lot of different situations across a lot of different employers and how they're choosing to handle this. And I will say it is a case-by-case basis. So if you do have employees that you would like to rehire, definitely reach out to your customer success manager and we can assist with what the best process is to take care of that. We've seen a lot of termed employees that they want to just make them active again and keep their coverages, no lapse in coverage. So we have a process for that. It's just really important to know that just because you're going in and making the employee active again, that doesn't reinstate any coverages on their coverage tab. So that will be a separate process of making them active and then also reinstating their coverages. So that way that can feed back over to the carriers and show that you should have that coverage.
Is it fair to say, Lindsey, that if an employer is furloughing some employees, that and that's part of what we still provide a customer success manager for, right? Is additional training on those types of situations. So is it fair to say that across the board, that would be a great reason to reach out and ask for some additional training if you're encountering that for the first time?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That would be definitely reach out so we can make sure that we're assisting you in the best way possible. And for the second part of furlough, maybe you're choosing to, they had a 3-month furlough and you're choosing to rehire them, but then you do want to have them go through a new waiting period, or maybe you want the waiting period to, they don't have to apply for that because they're rehiring and they did work there within, let's say, the past year. Then there's a different process for that, and we can show you how to make sure that you're doing that correctly with a rehire life event and making sure the effective date is what you would like for it to be done. So definitely reach out to your customer success manager and we can assist with that.
And in closing, we just wanted to talk a little bit about some helpful tips and some common issues. These are just some common calls that we get on a pretty ongoing basis. So I'm going to have Lindsey take the first few, and then we'll close up for today.
And before Lindsey does that, I want to invite you, we're going to close with, we've got a few questions queued that we haven't answered yet. And so that's the last thing we're going to do today is answer questions in the Q&A. So if you haven't done so, if we haven't answered your questions as of the moment, if you have something still on your mind, now would be a great time to put it in the Q&A box, and we'll be getting to those in just a moment here. Lindsey?
So the first one I see a lot of is the employees are not notifying you in a timely manner that they need to have a life event processed. And sometimes there's just one-offs where it's just, happens, once in a blue moon. So if you have an employee that has exceeded the time limit, then we can assist in telling you how to do that. But if you're seeing that this is just a common thing, that it's taking 40, 45 days for them to notify you for different reasons, and you're continually having to make exceptions, we can adjust the standard time from 30 days to 45 days, 60 days, whatever you choose. You don't have to let the employee know that. You can say, hey, you have 30 days to let me know. That way, if they wait till day 30 and give it to you on day 31, you still have an opportunity to go in and do that life event without any issues. When we do find that we're outside of that window, what we do is we have employers that will use select enable enrollment manually. And when you do select that, it's very important to know that if you are doing life events in a timely manner, you should always use the life event that is applying to the specific situation. That is very important for ACA purposes. That way it can choose the right waiting periods, it can choose the term dates, and that way when you get the 1095C forms that are going out, it's showing the correct coding on there. So it is really important to use the life event that's set up, and that way if you can't use that and you have to use enable enrollment manually, it's important to know that when you select that, you are telling the system to not follow any of the rules that we have set up. You are saying, I'm going to enable enrollment manually. You are picking the effective date. You are choosing how long to let the employee enroll in benefits. And if you said, hey, I don't want the employee to be able to change medical plans, I only want to allow them to change coverage tier. If you select enable enrollment manually, you're saying, I don't really care about that rule anymore. Here's what we're going to do. So it's important to use the correct life events and only use enable enrollment manually when you really do need to use it. And if you have questions about that, you can definitely reach out to your customer success manager. If you have plans, if you do enable enrollment manually and you're looking for a specific plan to show up and it's not showing up as something you can edit, if you have plans that are only offered during open enrollment or a new hire window, then those plans, even when clicking enable enrollment manually, unfortunately are not going to pop up for you to enroll in. And if you need us to go ahead and allow coverage to be put on there, then you would definitely just reach out and we would get that taken care of for you.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is a rules-based system, and the system is not going to allow you to break the rules very easily. So we know how to break those rules.
It was designed to prevent people like me from breaking it, Christine.
We know how to work our way around those in many cases, but the best thing to do is to make sure that employees are following the rules and that you're entering those life events in timely so that you don't have to use that enable enrollment manually button. But as Lindsey said, if you find that it's common, you're getting the information 30, 31 days, and you're entering it on day 35, just let us know and we'll update the system to allow you to still enter that information in that far out. Now, in terms of where can I find additional information on processing life events, all of you that are current system users should have a beautiful blue Steele manual that gives you all of this information, lots of screenshots on how to process life events. And if you don't have one of those manuals, reach out to your customer success manager and let them know that you need one. It could be that maybe you're new to your position and the previous person threw it away, took it with them, who knows? Just let us know and we can get you a new copy. And who should you call if you have additional questions? It's that customer success manager again. You should have someone who is exclusively assigned to your account that you can reach out to for questions. If you're not sure who that is, let us know, but everyone should have had some sort of conversation with their customer success manager. We have a couple of new ones and we've had a few changes, but everyone should be aware of who they can reach out to. If not, let us know. Are there any other questions that we need to review?
Yeah, we've got 2 questions in closing, and if you haven't submitted your question yet, you're welcome to still submit it. We're going to clear out the question queue, and then we'll be done for today. And the last 2 questions that I have in there in the moment, I love these questions. I talk sometimes during the sales process when we onboard new groups, I sometimes talk about how, with time and effort, we can get to what I call Selerix PhD. In other words, we can really customize some things and make some real progress for specific things that you might want. And these last 2 questions both dive into that a little bit. One, the first, Lindsey, I think I'll direct these both to you. And actually, I had this question twice, and it has to do with groups that have integrations with their payroll system. And the question specifically is for pay group, salary, and job class system changes. If I have an integration with my payroll system, can I enter that into my HRIS or my payroll system and have that automatically update the Steele system?
Yes. So we do have some groups that have that automatically come over. And based on the different plans that you have and how the life events are set up, a lot of times, so pay group would be something that would automatically happen. There's no further action that would need to be done. Salary, when it changes it, if you're choosing to recalculate the long-term disability benefit, it's something that would go ahead and happen. If you're sending over job class changes, this system will still require the second step, which would be the employee logging in to make changes to benefits based on that job class change. So the system would initiate it, open up the 30-day window based on the date that was provided, and allow the employee to go in during that time and make changes to their benefits. But obviously, we have no idea what benefits they're going to want, what they're not going to want. So we can't just auto-enroll them into whatever. So it will start the first step for them, and then the employee will go in and take care of anything that they needed to do.
Awesome. Thank you, Lindsey. Christine, I've got a question that just came in that I want to direct to you. And the question is, what if the provider, for example, Humana, rejects the qualifying event due to documentation not meeting their standards? We ever ran into something like that?
I have never been involved in a life event issue for anyone that we have a file feed running for. Typically, the carriers will accept what is on our feed, and they don't ask for any additional documentation. So I'm not aware of any issues to that at all.
So it would be fair to say that, and I'm going to widen this up to encompass self-bills from our system as well. If we have self-bills running or data feeds running to a carrier across the board universally today, it's fair to say that we don't have any problems with rejecting information. The carriers are treating our coverage as authoritative, yes?
Correct.
Okay. And then the last question, Lindsey, which is a question for you. This is another Selerix PhD question. I've got a employer that they want to know that if an employee enters a life event to add or delete a dependent, can the system be programmed to have a pop-up to change their beneficiary?
Yes. So each plan has specific rules that would be set up for that plan, like life event wise. So for instance, if you had a baby, we wouldn't have you enroll in spouse life insurance because that isn't specifically to do with that plan. And I'm just using that as an example. So if you chose to have a dependent added or deleted, to open up the life insurance and request new beneficiary information, then we would program that specifically so the employee would have to do that.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Lindsey. That reminds me of something. And if this customer is on the line, who this quote I'm borrowing it from, I may owe you royalties. But we've got a customer that likes to say that in 2020 we can make cars drive themselves. So as it relates to what we can do from a rules perspective in your benefits system, it's not really a question of can it be done? It's just a question of what is the effort involved in that. And one of the beauties of Selerix we talked about last week, Lindsey, was Selerix is JScript enabled, which means we have the ability to write code into the back end of the system to manipulate the system to do certain things. And I'm just wondering from your perspective, Lindsey, is there any disadvantage of writing tons of code from our side to customizing solutions? Is there scenarios where over customizing can get us into any trouble?
Yes and no. I think writing the code on the back end really just makes sure we take care of every different situation possible, but there's always an exception to the rule, and I think that we find that a lot. So we do our best to make sure we encompass everything. But there are some things, that it's just, there has to be a hand put in it that we cannot there's not a technology solution to fix that. There's always needs to be like some sort of human interaction on there.
So what I think I'm hearing you say is best practices, let's work within the construct of the system itself to get as customized of a system as we can for our customers. And then if there's something that they can't do, for example, if I terminate an employee after the 15th of the month, I cover them through the end of the following month. If there's some sort of rule like that that needs to be built, then ultimately writing code is how we're going to get that done. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Christine, I guess I will maybe ask a closing question to both of you. If I've got a customer on the line right now, or somebody who's using Steele system on the line right now, and they're evaluating, should I turn on the ability for some employees to do some life events in a self-process scenario, what advice or insight would you have for that customer?
I would say a lot of it depends on what type of industry it is and how hands-on the employees are with technology. But it would definitely be something that I would consider, and probably where that question needs to start is, how do you have them handle their enrollment? We're hoping that all of you are allowing your employees to log into the system and walk their way through the enrollment process without a lot of involvement from HR. And once you get to that point, then they definitely should be capable of logging in whenever there's a life event. We do have some really good marketing pieces that would that we can share with you that would allow them to have instruction on how to do that and where they need to go in order to enter those. You have the ability to have self-service and HR administered, so you can start the process where you're allowing them to do that, but if they don't feel comfortable, they can still come to you and you can walk them through the process as well. You can also have them log in front of you and walk them through that self-service process just to get them familiar with it.
And Lindsey, maybe a follow-up to that. If I'm an employer and I'm interested in doing that for the first time, do I need to do that on my renewal date, or can I just turn that live anytime?
We could do that at any time.
Is it fair to say that that's as simple as a checkbox for us on the backside?
Yep, once we get everything established, we can turn it on for each plan and decide what they want to do, and we would go live immediately for that.
A little more than just a checkbox, but it's
You gotta
definitely.
give me a break. You gotta give me a break, Christine. I'm a sales guy. I make everything sound easier.
We got to pull the reins back on you sometimes. But,
Christine, Lindsey, is number one, I'm so thankful to have the both of you. And for those of our guests that are on the line, I got to do a shout plug out to Steele. We ran some Net Promoter Score stuff with an employee survey last year, and the Steele Net Promoter Score was slightly better than Amazon, Netflix, and Starbucks. And I can't take all the credit for that. For those of you that have stuck with us for the call, you can clearly see that we have some of the most talented people out there in our technology department that are helping you set up these types of rules. And I think what I would like to leave you with today is I give you an email address, and that's info@steelebenefits.com. For anyone who did not get your questions answered, or if you have a question that can the system do this, or something that we can do to make your system better, if you would just email us at info@steelebenefits.com, we can discuss that internally and see if there's something that we can do to enhance your current experience. We truly care about you. Our mission and vision is to create a prosperous workforce. That workforce includes HR, and so we value those of you that are on the line so much, your partnership and your patronage. And we really, truly, as you can tell, meeting Christine and Lindsey, we're really committed to giving you the best experience that we can. And thank you so much for the opportunity to do that for you. So with that being said, I'm going to close out today. This was part 3 of the Steele Learning Series, of a 12-part series. We're back next week on Tuesday. And next Tuesday, we'll be talking about benefits that trend in the COVID-19 world. And I so look forward to talking to Megan and Dane and Kristen. And we're going to talk about things like information protection, telemedicine, mental health, and which benefits can you offer to your employees that will cover them in COVID-19 scenarios. So we look forward to being back next week, same time, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 Central on this coming Tuesday. And we're going to chat about benefits that will trend in a world with COVID-19. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and attention.